you, and here, go to jail and be rehabilitated, and then we'll let you out after you've read the Bible enough. I don't have mercy for criminals. I don't have mercy for people who cause strife, and they should be summarily executed and removed from society.
In talking with the two of you, there's not much lightness or humor.
That's because you're talking.
This is
all really.
You're talking.
It's all very serious. There's kind of a fortress mentality about this.
If we were dragging you to be thrown to the lions, I don't think you'd see much lightness.
Look, whether you are
to the lions, seen it. Come on, now have you been thrown to the lions?
Oh, I would say
Satanists all over the country are being.
Am I throwing you to the lions?
As much as the society that we live in now is, I'd say yes.
So what you're saying is not just necessarily me today, that you have a beleaguered stance.
See, you don't realize, from our point of view, we are under attack. We
you
are
think,
being
well,
attacked.
Everyone should be attacking Satanists. What's
No,
wrong
I
with
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
But you don't see from our point of view either how we are under attack and we are retaliating. This is our philosophy.
Do you think I want to come here to explain these things to you? We're being attacked every day by the media, by religious fanatics, and by people like you, even though you claim to be rational.
And we're constantly being called upon to
We have a lot of other
are.
things to talk about than say why we're not this and why we're not that, but you constantly attack us and slander us. If you're going to say the Satanic Bible is responsible for murder, then you're going to have many more Satanists coming out.
I don't see that as an attack, because I think that I have the right, as a journalist, to cite quotes that I think encouraging
but we have the right
negative
to cite the Holy Bible, and you say, well, all these things aren't Christian.
No, I say that they are philosophically inconsistent with what is taught, that they are.
Well, I seem to see this double standard.
Why is there a double standard? Why? There's Jim Jones, the Spanish Inquisition,
because
all kinds of religious and holy wars.
It's very simple. Because this book says, turn the other cheek and love your neighbor.
It says so many things.
It also says, hate your neighbor and get even with that sucker.
That book also
perform a destruction ritual on him.
That book also
says
that witches
That book says thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
That was the theocratic state of Israel.
Well, it's in that book. Why don't you take it out?
I'm not taking it out. That was a civil crime in a theocratic state.
Why are you still using
it had nothing to do with person-to-person. I'm talking person-to-person.
What about
people still read this?
I'm talking about the rules that govern interpersonal relationships, and those rules are love your neighbor, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. This book says perform a destruction ritual, and if he's annihilated as the result, rejoice.
Right, it does.
Rejoice.
And what about the things in that book? In the Old Testament, it is filled with descriptions of pious, religious people sacrificing goats to Jehovah, your God, not my God, but your God. How do you explain that? Why are you still using this primitive book about goat sacrifice, the proper way to wear your hat when you're in the desert? This has nothing to do with the modern society we live in.
Civil,
ceremonial. Why are you using? Look at it as a history book.
Culture.
What does it have to do with your culture?
The new covenant that Jesus Christ established through the cross. That is the message that we now bear. That
why?
Is the good news that
Why are you? You are of European descent, I imagine. Why do you reject the beautiful and pure tradition of pagan heritage which you have, in favor of an alien Eastern creed that came out of a desert that has nothing to do with the world you come from or live in? Why?
Well, the answer is very simple, that there is one God, and that paganism is an attempt of Satan to turn people from the true God.
What was it when your ancestors before Christ were pagans? What was it then? Were they sinners?
God always was.
Why didn't anyone hear about it?
They did hear about it. The invisible things of God are clearly seen from the creation of the world, the first chapter of Romans.
What about all your ancestors who were pagans?
Well,
are they sinners?
Some of my ancestors probably were pagans because they were a product of that culture in its declension away from the worship of the true God.
Well, you are a product of Judeo-Christian culture, which has infiltrated Western society.
I'm also as you, the product of a personal decision as to whom I would yield my life to and what value systems I would choose to live by. I made that personal decision.
And your personal decision, you will admit, is not based on rationality, but faith in a book.
No, I will not admit that. It is based upon the height of rationality of God as a demonstrably intricate, loving, personal creator and designer of this universe.
Well, whether you like it or not, in the future, people are going to look at the Bible and put it on the shelf with Mother Goose's fairy tales and all the other wonderful books that human beings have created to give them some meaning, and it will just be looked at as another book. You have your belief system. It's based on a book written 2,000 years ago. As far as I'm concerned,
in part,
it has no relevance.
And it was not written 2,000 years ago.
They've revised it. King James revised it, took out the parts
but there
he
is
didn't
the Old
like.
Testament that goes back with historical consistency far beyond that.
And that's the part that advocates animal sacrifice, is the Old Testament. Why didn't you throw that part out then? Why do you worship a book that advocates animal sacrifice?
As she used the word, the scapegoating was a foreshadowing of the ultimate sacrifice, as Christ, our great high priest, came to offer himself as the final sacrifice for sin.
Well, there will come a day when people will look at this tape and hear what you're saying and say these were truly the dark ages, when an intelligent person like Bob Larson could advocate such insane ideas.
The idea that God would love us enough to give of himself for us, I don't consider that to be insane. I think it's the most beautiful idea on the face of this planet.
So Santa Claus is a nice idea too, but I wouldn't set up a church based on it.
But what it does is that it does for me what I could not do for myself. You see, as a Satanist, you can save yourself.
It makes you feel...
As a Christian, I cannot save myself.
Well, I'm telling you, what if I told you you're free? There is no God, there's no heaven or hell. Bob, you're free to do whatever you want to do. You're a fairly rational person. I trust you. You can dismiss all this nonsense and live your life now. You wouldn't go with that. You'd rather still...
Well, I would have to make both a decision of faith as well as a decision of my intellect to determine whether or not that was truly true. You see,
have you never doubted that this book, the Bible, may not be an accurate portrayal of the universe?
And I've doubted many times the veracity of what I personally believe. And like all people, I'm on my own pilgrimage to find what has theologically been called that ultimate ground of being, that ultimate truth. But as I continue, I'm continuing on a pathway paved by mercy and justice and goodness and love, not one paved by vengeance and hate and retribution, where the strong survive. Those are the two things that are antithetical.
What you're talking about, love, mercy, forgiveness, peace, that's all theoretical. Not if you're the recipient of it. Not even any Christian is practicing that at this moment. Christians are cheating on their wives. Christians are killing each other. And the Bible and your church aren't going to change anything about that. Until you look at human nature realistically, you're never going to have a sane perspective on the world.
Finally, in a nutshell, your view of Christ and your view of Satan. So there's no misunderstanding to anyone as to what you truly believe about both. I'll let you go first and Zeno last. Christ and Satan.
Christ is a mythological figure, just as the Easter Bunny, Hercules, Zeus, the Tooth Fairy. And if you want to believe that Christ existed and was a historical personage, that is your right. However, I place no importance on Christ or the teachings of Christ, except that Judeo-Christianity as a whole has, in my view, been a very dangerous cult that has destroyed human potential for 2,000 years, and I oppose the idea of Christianity. I do not accept the religious validity of Christ, but I do believe it is a dangerous social system, and I am glad to see that it's finally decaying.
And Satan?
Satan, just as all the other mythological figures I named, is a figure that the human imagination has created as an archetype. If you've read Carl Jung, you know what an archetype is. An ideal. It's a type, a form, and it has no more valid existence than Christ. However, you can decide a lot about a person, whether they resonate to the archetype of the God of death, which is Christ, the God of self-sacrifice and surrender, the God of the meek and the weak, or Satan, who is traditionally the God of the strong, of the powerful and of the leaders of the world.
Zena, Christ and the devil.
Personally, I don't even give them the time that I think the average Christian does. I don't view Christ as anything more than just what Nicholas said, an archetype. Satan, it's clearly been stated that we use it in a representative and symbolic sense of meaning the adversary, or the opposed, or the one to question, or the rebel, traditionally. And any anthropomorphic form that Satan may hold, you would be more likely to find in something that's right around us. A physical object, maybe a car. Or
no
maybe
God, no devil, just us.
That's up to you. Mm-hmm.
Just us as
that's
animals.
That's what it boils down
that's
to,
it.
yeah.
We live in a cosmos that is created by nature, comes from nature, and shall return to nature. There's no judge above us or below us.